This is my GT rig.
Nice little medals from the World Finals.
I play Gran Turismo.
All the shirts.
And the big old hammer
This is pretty useful.
for when you get annoyed at losing a race.
This is my rig.
My whole setup.
Beautiful trophy.
My GT rig.
My rig.
Here comes Miyazawa on the floor. Oh no! Big contact there.
Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. But they're still side by side. It's a drag race to the line. Who's going to get it?
Hello and welcome to the top 16 superstars for the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships. It's time for the North America region, and first of all we're focusing on the Nations Cup. My name is Tom Brooks, alongside me Jimmy Broadbent. Jimmy, good to have you back, and this is going to be an exciting race at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, isn't it?
Yeah, back out there again at Catalonia, and what we've seen from other races, it's proven to be a race of strategy and keeping the tyres alive around here. We have that massive 9x tyre wear multiplier you can see on your screen right now, and that basically means that your tyres fall off very, very quickly indeed. So if you aren't looking after them, you're going to find yourself in the gravel.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't occur. You can see the circuit on your screen at the moment, as Jimmy said. Group 2 cars for these drivers, racing soft, medium and hard compound tyres available for them. And all the drivers must use each compound of tyre for at least a minimum of 1 lap. So then over to the grid for the start of the Nations Cup race for the North America region of the top 16 superstars. And here is how the drivers line up. On pole position, it's Andrew Brooks, the Canadian driver. Keep an eye out for him. He qualified very well, as you can see. Then it's Heck in P2, alongside him on the front row of the grid. P3, Randall Hayward, very distinctive livery on his Nissan GTR. And alongside him is Danny Solis, again another name that is familiar to us from the World Tour events. Kevin Pounder lines up inside the top 5, not a bad qualifying for him. Alongside him is Mark Pinnell in the Turismo Racing-esque car. Then Lynch lines up in P7, just in the lower half of the top 10. 8th position, Komatsu in the PlayStation liveried machine. A helicopter flies overhead as we look at Wenzel in P9. And completing the top 10 is Cortez for the TTG team. 11th position on the grid is Johnson. And alongside him is Grove in the purple and pink liveried machine. Further back on the grid is Stewart in 13th position. Nice simple livery on his car for the Canadian driver. And alongside him is the American of Helt. And then the final row of the grid is comprised of Roach in 15th position. And that makes our grid for the Nations Cup race. Jimmy, we get our first look at the drivers on their different tyre compounds. The majority opting for softs.
Interesting to see Kevin in 5th place there, the only one in the top 10 to go for the medium tyre at the start. So his goal really is to try and hold up all those guys behind him as much as possible. Meanwhile, at the front of the field for Brooks, Heck and Hayward, that sounds like me saying Heck and Hayward there. For Brooks, Heck and Hayward, they need to try and put away basically as quick as they can. Same with Solis, and use the fact that Kevin is on the medium compounder tyre to try and use him as a buffer to the rest of the field.
Strategy is always going to be important in this race. We're expecting about 4 or 5 stops for these drivers. As a reminder, they must use each compound of tyre exactly once. There you can see on top of your screen, 19 laps for these drivers, 3 times fuel consumption, 9 times tyre wear. The Nations Cup race for the North America's region of the top 16 superstars for the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships is about to get underway. Andrew Brooks, the Canadian driver, will lead the field over the timing line. When he crosses it, we will get racing then underway here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. So Brooks leads the field over the line as they come down the start-finish straight and head down towards that first corner. Everybody in the slipstream stream here. We should be expecting them to take it relatively easy, but some of them weaving to try and break the toe of the drivers behind before they come into that braking zone for the first time then. Andrew Brooks holds on to the lead, but Heck is very close behind there. You can see him in P2, not too far adrift either is Randall Hayward in third position. The top three there, a little bit of a gap back to Danny Solis in P4, so they've made a bit of a better go of the first couple of corners. Down in towards turn 4 we go. Look at Lynch there, who's trying to go up the inside of P6. That's Mark Pinnell, who's hung out to dry on the outside, with Lynch, the American driver, trying to find his way through. Was he able to get it? No, I don't think he was. Pinnell's got the inside line for the next corner, but Lynch has got optimum tyre grip, goes the long way around the outside. A little bit of contact there, but he does get the position ahead of the Canadian driver. He's through into P6.
Yeah, nice move there, using the fact of the kind of comparative rolling roadblocks that is Kevin Pound on that medium compound. Basically means that the one that finds their way around him the best is the one that's going to make their position. And unfortunately, Mark Pinnell tried something, didn't quite work, and that allowed Lynch through. As Lynch now looking at the back of Kevin Pound, who goes very wide down the bottom there. He's going to lose out 5th place and 6th, I think, to Pinnell as well. He's just about holding it on the inside there. But, it's all getting all sorts of bumpy, a bit touchy-feely back there. Come on, guys, behave. Take them on a date first as we come now down to the last chicane. Pinnell will keep them there for now. But Kevin Pounder has lost that place down to 7th place now.
Yeah, it's all getting a bit argy-bargy in the lower halves of this top 10 in the early stages. Everybody's just sorting themselves out. You can see Johnson there just in the lower half of the top 10. The drivers who are on the hard combat of tyres all coming in at the end of lap 1, so there's no minimum time for these drivers to use this combat of tyres. They must use it for at least 1 lap or so, but they can get off them as soon as they possibly can. And everybody who's been on the hard combat of tyres doing exactly the same. Grove and Helt going to the softs, Roach going to the medium tyre. So now everybody is on the same compound of tyre, bar Pounder, Johnson and Roach, everybody else on the soft compound, and that's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in these opening stages as everybody just finds their feet in these first couple of laps or so.
Interestingly, Pounder as well is the only driver inside the top 10 to be on the medium tyre, but the only driver as well to be in a different car from the rest of them. He is in a Nissan GTR, but he's in the modern version as opposed to this 2008 version. So I had to look closely to see that, because they still look quite similar, of course. But yeah, you can see there as well, he's in the 2016 GTR, not the 2008 version. So maybe a little bit different in terms of performance there. You can see the rear wings a bit different too, if you look closely.
Yeah, slight change in the aerodynamics there for him, and a little bit on the rear diffuser there by the looks of things for Kevin Pounder, but doing a good job there inside P7. As I said, we're used to seeing him during these World Tour events, and it's good to see him doing relatively well so far. He's kind of falling into the clutches here of the likes of Komatsu, Wenzel and Cortez, but you would expect that because, of course, he is on the medium, the slower of the 2 compounds of tyre that these drivers are using at the moment. Meanwhile, out in front, leading the way, 1.3 seconds out in the front of this race is Andrew Brooks, the Canadian driver. TRL Deaf Son, sorry, Turismo Deaf Son, I should say, is what he's otherwise referred to as in terms of his PlayStation ID, and he is also doing a very nice job of leading the way in this race so far. Just to give you an idea of how much quicker he is compared to everybody else, given that he's not stuck in the dirty air of any other drivers. He set a 1 minute 35.168 last time around, and Heck in second place, and Hayward were in the 136s, low 136s. So he is significantly faster at this stage, and is just doing a very nice job here of building out that gap and stretching a lead out to give him a bit of a buffer later on with this strategy.
Yeah, really at this point, the gap to Heck behind is enough that he's no longer getting that draft down the straight. So he's at a good point now is Brooks. Good to know there's at least one Brooks that's decent in the simulator, eh, Tom?
Hey, thank you. Goodness me.
But he's doing a good job
simulator driving. Simulator driving's never been my forte, mate. Sadly, I want to say real-world driving has, but given the repertoire of crashes that given the repertoire of crashes I seem to have built up over the last few months, it's not gone particularly that well. I had some track training with Adam Christodoulou once upon a time as well, and I destroyed his car there as well, to be fair. You know, you live and you learn. Not for me in that case, but Andrew Brooks doing a good job of upholding the reputation of the surname Brooks. So go on, Andrew. I'm rooting for you, son. He's doing a good job. 2.2 seconds he now sits out in front of Heck in the lead of this race. We run on board here with Danny Solis, who's got a good view of the 2 drivers who are squabbling for that second position. position. You can see there Hayward trying to attack against Heck, who moves over to defend that line and again moves over under braking. Hayward, clearly the faster of the two drivers at this stage in the race with the slipstream advantage down that start-finish straight. He really closed up onto the back of his compatriot. Through turn 3 though, that's where he's going to suffer a little bit, but a bit wide there for Heck as he comes through that corner, but he still is able to maintain that gap at a constant now.
As of now, yeah, but this is the thing now that Hayward is going to be just sitting in that dirty air. Basically, he's going to be sitting there, scrubbing the front tyres, and just making things more difficult for himself and Danny Solis behind. You can see in the mirror there, on the right-hand side, just how close Danny Solis is behind as well. We know how quick he can be from the World Tour events as well, and of course running very well here. But it just seems that Brooks just has something a little bit extra over these guys at the moment.
Yeah, seemingly so, and that extra is in terms of his pace, although, albeit, actually last time around, the fastest third sector of this lap went to Randall Hayward, who we're looking at in the forefront of your shot at the moment. Danny Solis has done a good job of closing up onto the back of this trio, who are still squabbling for position amongst one another. 3.3 seconds gap now sits to Andrew Brooks in front, and all the while they're squabbling, or if they begin squabbling properly amongst one another, it'll allow him even more of a buffer. But they need to be a bit careful because Lynch and Pinnell are not too far adrift in the background of your shot in 5th and 6th position respectively. But out of the final corner, all of the soft compound runners continuing on. When are they going to make their first pit stops in this race is the crucial question. Down the start-finish straight we go, on board here with Danny Solis. He's got the advantage of the slipstream. Does he lift off going into the braking zone? Ever so slightly there, but not too much. And just clearly wasn't close enough to be able to attack against Hayward at the moment.
I do wonder at this point when we're going to see our first pit stops in the top of the field. We've had a couple down the bottom there. We have seen in previous races that people like to try and double run the soft tyre essentially, so use it twice or even 3 times in some aspects, just to try and get an idea of just to try and eke out that bit extra time. Of course, usually you want to try and just have one pit stop each on one tyre, but around here the pit stop is actually fair. It's only about 4 or 5 seconds you spend in the pits really for a change of tyres, so it really is worth just trying to be as quick on track as possible and not worry too much about the pit stops.
Yeah, exactly that, and well, we'll see how it goes over the course of this one. Still sitting on board here with looking at Danny Solis from an external point of view, I should say. You can see penalties being given there for Stewart and Cortez in 10th and 11th place respectively. They've now served those penalties as they come down in towards turn number 10. That presumably was for exceeding track limits or contact with another driver. Just a reminder, if you are new to our Top 16 Superstars events, well, welcome along. It's great to have you here. If you've watched our World Tour events previously, as Heck has had a moment there at the final chicane, I'll interrupt myself. He goes off into the pit lane there, so a mistake from Heck has cost him very dear. It's cost him at least 2 positions. He's into the pit lane, goes from the soft to the soft compound of tyre, but that will not have helped him to try and maintain in this battle for the podium positions here.
I think what happened there is that Heck made the split-second decision to change his strategy, because he made the mistake, thought, you know what, heck this, as we could say for him, came into the pit lane, bowled on another set of soft tyres, is going to try and use now that speed on track to try and gain back the time he lost. Already on the back of Pounder here, who we know is on the medium compound tyre, has been since the start of the race. We should see him just dive to the inside. Pounder comes across there a little bit late there for the defence in my mind for Kevin Pounder, but the move's been made and Heck back up to P5, and importantly for him now, there's no one really in front of him for him to bother him, so he can go out now and just try and put in as many fast laps as possible on that fresh set of soft tyres.
Yeah, that'll be his saving grace, really, as he doesn't have to worry too much about that mistake there. Now this battle continues on for second position as it sits between Randall Hayward and Danny Solis. You can see there Hayward trying to defend that inside line as Solis was getting very close coming through turn 9 of Campson. You can see here as well that Komatsu is also looking pretty aggressive on the back of Grove. Both these drivers on the soft compound of tyre. A very aggressive late chop there for Grove as Komatsu tries to send it through at turn 10. They run side by side on the corner exit. Who is going to get better traction? Grove just holds on, but that was such an aggressive move late on the brakes. I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I wonder if that was just a day late and $1 short there. Komatsu's up the inside, meanwhile through into the right-hander before the chicane. He gets it through, and he is now into P8 ahead of Grove as the leaders come into the pit lane.
So they're all coming on to the another set of soft tyres. Some people going for the mediums as well. Lynch finally getting off the hard tyre and going to the soft. Haywood, soft. Solis has gone from soft to medium. But yeah, that was a bit of a late defensive move. You can defend, but reacting is usually considered to be not really very sportsmanlike, and usually against the rules as well. But you know, no harm, no foul. The position was made in the end, so even if there were stewards, I think they would probably just have left that for now. Solis now, medium compounder tyre, our highest ranked driver on the medium tyre. I'll be interested to see if he comes in now, puts on the hard compound, and then tries a double soft to the finish. It's really quite hard to understand what tyre strategy is the best around here, but I think the best strategies we've seen so far have usually been 4 stops. So 4 stops in 19 laps obviously is quite a fair chunk of time, but if you're on the right sort of tyre, then why not make the extra stop?
Well, according to the information we have in the commentary position here, the racing soft tyre is about 1.2 seconds quicker than the racing medium, 1.1 seconds quicker ahead of the racing hard tyre. So an interesting difference in pace there between those 2 tyre compounds. So the hard tyre about 2 seconds a lap slower, 2.2 seconds a lap slower than the soft tyre, for example. Just going back to my earlier point, I was talking about the top 16 Superstars events and referring them to the World Tour events. Just to give you an example of the differences that we have between them, we don't have any live stewarding here for these top 16 Superstars races. Everything is decided in-game, so we don't have a steward who will give out penalties for contact. That is all deemed down to the game, essentially. So you might see a few bits and bobs going on in this race, and that will be interesting to see how it plays. Now here is Pounder versus Komatsu for P6. Late on the brakes there for Pounder. Look how much more grip he had at the braking there, Jimmy.
Yeah, easy move there. I think very firm as well. It's important to be decisive with those sort of moves. If you kind of hover around and then half-heartedly go for an overtake, that's when the crashes happen. Again, I know that from experience. So here's Lynch as well doing the same thing. This time on Wenzel up the inside on the fresh set of soft compound tyres. So he's really enjoying that at the moment. Tell you what, these guys don't half give us a bit of a challenge trying to keep up with what tyres everyone on, what tyre everyone has been on as well. I don't think I've got enough sets of fingers to count it all.
Yeah, math has never been my strong point, sadly. Thank goodness for the invention of the calculator. My teacher was wrong. You do have them in your pocket every single day of your life, thankfully, so it's quite useful to be able to work bits and bobs like that out. Meanwhile, Andrew Brooks still continues on in the lead of this race. 6 seconds ahead of Heck and Haywood, 7 seconds now ahead of Haywood, so that gap has increased. Here is your race leader just coming through that chicane. He's just looked calm and comfortable, and we've seen this in other regions, Jimmy, in the different races for the Nations Cup, and it's really interesting to see just if you get out in front, pull out an advantage to your fellow competitors, that what a difference it makes in these middle stages of this race.
Well, I think Brooks probably the quickest in the field anyway at this point, and then also you're taking away the fact that he's not got to squabble with anyone. He can just drive his own race, not have to keep looking in his mirrors and people try and moves into the braking zone. So he can just go out there and essentially drive his own little hot lap race, which is what he's been doing. And the result is 6.5 seconds to Heck behind already, just about halfway into the race. Looking very calm. Let's look at his inputs here. There, very soft and steady on the throttle and on the wheel as well. Very smooth driver is Andrew Brooks. Almost like he's just on a Sunday drive here, but realistically he's out there gapping some of the best drivers in the North American region. So really, it's going to show smooth and fast.
Johnson given a penalty on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see that with the flashing red dot next to his name on that tower graphic. So it's not really featured too much in this race. It won't affect him too much, but still just worth bearing in mind to point that out to you in case you see it for any other drivers over the course of this one. There you can see P2 and P3 of Heck and Haywood. The continuing story continues on, funnily enough, down into P10. This battle for second position as Haywood has just closed up by a few tenths of a second on this lap to Heck. It was just over a second last time around. It now sits at about half a second, so Haywood clearly looking the more comfortable of the two drivers, and will we see them squabbling for position before too long? Into that chicane we go. A little bit out of shape there for Haywood on the way in, but gathers it up quite nicely there. It's so easy to make a mistake in that corner, Jimmy, isn't it? Because of those sausage curbs in particular.
It seems you can carry quite a lot of speed over the curbs if you hit it just in the right way. However, of course, if you get it the wrong way, you get fired off, as we've seen a couple of times. It also happened to Heck as well earlier on. So here's Lynch. He's got a 0.5 second penalty. He'll serve that on the back straight. Regardless, going for the move there on Komatsu. Gets it done down into T1. Nice and easy. Again on that softer compounder tyre. So just trying to use that to his advantage right now. Saying that, all sorts of sideways coming through T2 there. Very easy to do with these cars. Lots of horsepower in these. You forget about it because of how much downforce they have. But you're looking at about 550, 600 horsepower in these cars. And it's very, very easy to get the car loose on exit if you're being a little bit too enthusiastic. So what he's going to try and do now is probably try and build a little bit of a gap so Komatsu can't come back in with the penalty. Meanwhile, Haywood right on the back of Heck in front at the moment, coming up to the fast right hand. Let's see how close he can get through here. This is where the dirty air is usually at its worst. He's managed to stick right to the back there of his fellow American. Let's see what he can do down into the hairpin. Heck kind of half defends, gives him a line at the end. Haywood sends it up the inside. Can he get a stop? Yep, stops on the apex there. Doesn't allow Heck a chance to come back through. Haywood up into P2.
Nice clean move there for Haywood. I thought Heck was going to try and get that switchback, but clearly just not having the grip, and you can see him getting out of shape coming through the right-hander before the chicane in that final sector as well, which won't have helped him. Oh, I love how out of shape Haywood is able to get that car. He just gets it rotated so well through there. Heck, I think, coming into the pit lane then at the end of this lap. Indeed he is. So he's going from the soft tyre onto the softs once again. So he's going to run the medium and the hard tyres in the closing stages of this race. We're now over the halfway stage in this race as well, by the way, as Komatsu also into the pits, going soft as well. Meanwhile, Andrew Brooks still continues to lead out. His lap time last time around, a 1:37.837. Compare that to Randall Haywood in P2, a 1:36.464. So he's just significantly faster, really, isn't he? But he's able to keep that pace consistently more than anything. His best lap is over a second quicker than anybody else on track.
Now, whilst it's fairly boring to watch a driver just go off at the start of the race and just leave from the start, that's exactly what you want as a driver, is to just to have your own little race, just make your way up through the field and just stay there, really. As Heck there, who's just come out of the pit lane, I believe, is now squabbling with Kevin Pounder. I think he's just got through, actually, so Kevin Pounder back down to 6th position. Heck on the fresher set of rubber there. A lot of drivers, though, still having to use the medium and the hard compounded tyre, of which Kevin Pounder just needs to use the hard compound, if memory serves. But so many tyres, Tom. So many tyres to keep track of.
Yeah, there's more rubber in here than I don't know what, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. There are 3 tyre compounds to remind you as well, and it seems like we're just talking about tyres for the duration of this race, but it's such a big part of what happens over the course of this one, and it's so hard to predict. So whether you go for the quicker, softer compounds in the early stages and they go for the harder, slower compounds in the closing stages, or whether you do vice versa, whether you mix it up and have those slower compounds in the middle of your mix, it all comes down to it, really. And it can make or break a race for these drivers. That's why we're not seeing so much in terms of on-track side-by-side battles as things stand. It will get quite exciting, I'm sure, in the closing stages as all of these strategies begin to unravel for these drivers. But what it is brilliant to see at the moment is just how calm and composed everybody is being and so on. Heck there, he's made that second pit stop. We saw him coming in last time around, but he's in the unfortunate position of having traffic in the form of Mark Pinnell, who's getting out of shape coming through turn 4. Down the inside he comes, into T5, gets the move done up the inside, and quite easily done as well. You would expect that because, of course, he's on a newer set of soft tyres. He's going to be quicker, he's got more grip, and that was evident under braking into that corner.
Yeah, so whilst the soft tyres, of course, you might think, why is it so easy to make a move on someone else on soft tyres? The tyre wear rate we have is so significant around here. It's 9 times on the tyres, which is a very large rate of wear. And what that means for Heck, who's on a fresher set, is his tyres are almost brand new compared to Pinnell. So he can just chuck it up the inside, use the tasty part of the soft tyre whilst it's still there, and just get it done, and then go in pursuit of Danny Solis, who is on that medium compound, a worn set of medium compounds too. Our leader, Brooks, comes into the pit lane, goes from soft to medium, gets that done, and then in comes Danny Solis too, getting rid of those medium compounded tyres. So Haywood in as well. So front of the field now, making their 2nd or 3rd stops.
I always hark back to Danny Solis and think back to the 3rd World Tour event. I'll come back to that in a second because I'm just going to see what happens here with Heck. And Solis does not come out ahead of Heck, and Hayward likewise there as well. So Heck gets back into P2, so that's a strategy that's worked quite well for him on the soft tyres. Hayward, of course, is on the medium tyres here as well, and Solis and Pounder on the soft tyres are going to be a little bit faster than him, so I wonder how long he's going to run that compound there for. I was saying about Danny Solis, though, and just how impressive he was in World Tour 3 last year when he got himself into that repechage race to the delight of the crowd we had in New York as well. Meanwhile, this battle for 7th place continues on between Lynch and Komatsu. Komatsu on the soft tyres, Lynch on the medium. So, of course, the driver in 8th place, the driver who is chasing, is going to be quicker in terms of pace than the driver who is defending. And you can see just how evident that is, Jimmy, under braking in the corners, pretty much everywhere. He is going to be faster than Lynch at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much at this point, and Lynch can do the best he can to try and keep him there for as long as possible, but Komatsu should make short work of him coming into the hairpin here if he gets a good run off this right-hander, which he doesn't. And Lynch as well, for good measure, with a 0.5 second penalty, which he'll actually serve on the next lap because of how new it is. That's kind of lucky for Lynch there, actually, because otherwise he would have just given that position up and that would have been it, but at least now he can keep Komatsu behind for a bit longer, but penalty's never good.
Yeah, it's not ideal for sure there, so let's keep an eye out and see how that does affect Lynch, whether it does affect Lynch, and see whether he's able to pull out a gap to Komatsu over the next few corners or so. Komatsu a bit out of shape there into that corner. Mark Pinnell comes into the pit lane. He's on the hard tyre, was on the hard tyre, now goes to the medium tyre for the closing stages then of this race. You can see the two bright yellow machines in the background of Helt and Cortez. They, I believe, are driving for the TTG team. Out of the pit lane here comes Mark Pinnell. That's going to upset Komatsu's charge a little bit because Pinnell has come right out in the middle of that sandwich.
You're probably thinking, where'd this guy come from? Come on. Oh, now there's two of them. You know, what do I do now? You know, so he'll have to work his way around. Should be easy enough on that soft compounder tyre, though it is a fresh set of mediums, though. So you know, the fresh set of mediums all pretty much as decent as a worn set of softs, so it's going to be quite an equal battle, I think.
I'm excited to see how it's all going to play out for these guys. Lynch is about to serve his penalty, by the way. Half a second is what he has to serve, and he's got a little bit of an advantage over Pinnell, but the closing speed, I think, is not going to help him at all. Coming through turn 7 and turn 8, let's see how this is going to affect the American driver with the Canadian in the middle of your shot. So serves that penalty half a second. Now, does Pinnell close up enough to launch something down into T10? Not quite, but he is, of course, now closer than he was just a few moments beforehand. So if he can keep that pace at a constant, keep that gap at a constant, he could be in with a shout of attacking within the next lap and a half or so. Cortez, meanwhile, in the background has got a penalty, but Pinnell just looking a little bit raggedy here, I think it's fair to say, and losing time, crucially, as a result of that raggedness.
I think maybe just really quite desperate to get past Lynch as soon as possible on the more worn tyre in front. He'll have a bit of a chance here coming down the straight. He'll have the draft all the way down to T1 there. You can watch the slipstream in effect here as we look back from the spoiler of Lynch. Watch as Pinnell gets ever closer. So he gets a bit of a flash to say, all right, mate, look in your mirrors. Don't look where I'm about to go. Will he dive to the inside? Looks to the inside quite late there. Not going to quite make that stick there, but an interesting strategy there from Pinnell. We use that a lot in our racing too. It's just to try and distract the driver, get him looking behind you instead of looking in front of you. A bit cheeky, but there's nothing in the rules that say you can't do it. So,
no, well, any form of distraction for the driver that you're trying to attack in front is probably welcomed as a result of that. And if you can try and distract them for just a brief moment and then dive down their inside or go to their outside, whatever it may be, it's an effective way of finding your way past a fellow competitor. And it's within the spirit of the rules as well. And we all know that sportsmanship is all about avoiding doing things that makes you look bad. So all of these drivers doing a good job of that at the moment. Andrew Brooks, meanwhile, just cleared off in this one. 7.5 seconds. Heck in second place. I mean, what the heck is going on for him? Because he's 7.5 seconds, but he's on the softer compound of tyre. But he's still slower than Andrew Brooks. I think that's just a testament to Brooks' pace.
yeah, easy answer there. Brooks is faster at this point. No one's got the pace to match him, which is great for Brooks, someone who I think carries all the bad luck in the world with him when he comes to the World Tour events, but in the online stuff is almost untouchable. So we've still yet to see his true potential. Meanwhile, battle for second place on your screen right now. Danny Solis, Randall Hayward. Solis driving up to the rear wing there of Randall Hayward. Is going to try and go all the way around the outside on that soft compound tyre at T1. He's still there. He's going to make it work. Very nice move there from Danny Solis, just using that soft compound tyre. A little bit deep though into T3, but he can use the grip of the tyre. It'll be quite a lot of wear doing that, but it'll keep him ahead for now. Nice move there by Solis.
Very smoothly done indeed. Exactly what he needed to do there, Danny Solis, and displaying that racecraft that we know he is so good at doing as well. Meanwhile, Pennell versus Lynch continues on then. And Lynch in P7 now, just trying to attack against his fellow North American driver. Pennell, of course, hailing from Canada, Lynch from America. Down in towards the braking zone of turn 5 we go. That's Sayat. Through the left-handed kink of turn 6, up through turn 7 and then turn 8. Then you flick it right for that very fast right-hander of turn 9. What do you think the secrets are of this Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, Jimmy? What's the key to being consistent and quick around here?
That might sound like a very simple thing to say, but just carrying speed is incredibly important in these downforce cars, especially through like corners like T3 and coming down the hairpin here. Any corner where there's a long straight afterwards, if you're carrying good speed through the corner, you're going to see the gain from that all the way down the straight. That and also being smooth on the tyres. Those things don't necessarily go hand in hand, because sometimes when you're searching for speed, you just scrub the tyres along the circuit with no regard for their wear. But Brooks, for example, is doing both those things. He's being smooth on the tyres and he's being quick, and the result of that is nearly 9-second lead over the next competitor.
Yeah, that is what we love to see for Andrew Brooks. Cortez into the pit lane then, from the softs to the medium compound tyres. That's his third stop, I believe, in this race that he is now going to be making. Indeed it is. So he will emerge out of the pit lane just inside the top 10 into P9 there. Not bad at all for him. Just looking here then.
Brooks starting to struggle with wear there.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's not surprising there, really. He's done a really impressive middle stint on this medium tyre compound. And let's not forget, of course, he's only made 2 pit stops in this race. He's still got to run the hard tyre, but he's got such an advantage. And the pit loss time, actually, in this race, Jimmy, is so small. It's about 4 or 5 seconds or so. So he's going to come out clearly with a comfortable advantage when he pits, presumably on the penultimate lap.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to guess that too. It'll either be this lap or the next, but I think he could pit this lap and it'll be okay. But I think just for the sake of time, some people also, when you're at this stage and you're at the race, you also go for race time as well. How fast can I complete this race? It's a little thing you do kind of privately of yourself, but I think in that regard it wouldn't make sense to come in and take the hard tyre. So we come on to the penultimate lap. There is Brooks, the gap. That is the gap. You can see there, 8 seconds behind Brooks is Solis, Hayward and Pounder. Hayward a bit further back, of course. We'll expect to see Brooks come in for that hard tyre for the last lap. And you're probably wondering, why is he coming in for the hard tyre with 1 lap to go? Because it is the slowest tyre, and because every tyre, it's mandatory to use it for at least 1 lap. So come in, use the bad tyre at the end, minimise the damage it does to your race.
Yeah, exactly that. So, Kevin Pounder not doing too badly at all there. As you can see, lining up in P4 at the moment. Still got Heck and Pennell very close behind. Not too far in front of him there is Randall Hayward, actually. So, could be on for a potential podium here, Kevin Pounder. He's on the softer compound of tyre, let's not forget. So he is going to be quicker in theory than Randall Hayward. That's in theory. On paper, in terms of their lap times, they were nearly identical last time around, just about 1/100th of a second separating their time. So clearly the soft tyres may be coming to the end of their useful shelf life here, and that is why he's coming under a bit of pressure from the medium shot Heck here, Jimmy.
I think so. I think he's at that point where he's just really trying to stretch that soft tyre as much as possible. Heck there looking all over the back. Just trying again, just getting the mirrors of Pounder, just going to show, hey, look, I'm back here, look at me, don't look at the apex. There's a lot of that goes on in real life motorsports, and of course here as well in the virtual world. As Brooks comes in, as we predicted, for his last stop, he'll go onto that hard compound tyre. Still 8 litres left in the tank, that's enough to get round 1 more lap, just about. Solis as well will have to do the same thing, and he comes as well. Hard compound tyre goes on. Hayward, I imagine, will do the same thing. He does, hard compound tyre, so everyone opting for that strategy. But who's played it best? Brooks, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. He's had the pace. He's been able to fuel save as well. Look, he's got a couple of more litres compared to his other competitors around him. and that might just be a bit of a saving grace. He was always going to come out with an advantage. 7.5 seconds, though, exactly what he went in with. Everybody else now on the hard tyre, so this is kind of just who is quicker on this tyre compound. They've got to get it up to temperature. That's why you're seeing Heck sliding like a dog on a polished floor as he tries to get some grip and some heat in those tyres. I've been impressed actually with Heck over this one. He's not really put a foot wrong but for that spin. If he hadn't had that spin, I do wonder whether he would be the driver who is defending rather than attacking at the moment, though.
I mean, he has lost a couple of places from his starting position. So, I mean, for him, it will be a negative race. But he has made that one more pit stop as well. So, with the more aggressive strategy of trying that out, it didn't quite work out this time. And now it's come down to a proper fight on track, just hard compound versus hard compound. So really, it's going to be a fight for the line between Kevin Pounder and Heck now. This is going to be the last chance Heck's going to have to get by. He's a bit too far back behind Kevin here to make a move coming down to the hairpin, so it's probably going to be it for these guys, still in 5th position. So not the best race for Heck, really, I think, but still we'll be happy to come in the top 5.
Yeah, not bad at all there for him, but what can we say about this man here? Fastest lap, led every single lap, drove his strategy to perfection, and now he rounds the final corner. Andrew Brooks takes the win in the Nations Cup North America Top 16 Superstars race for Canada. Brilliant job there from him. Danny Solis comes home P2, and Randall Hayward rounds out the podium in P3. Pounder just holds on for 4th place. Heck spins it over the line in P5. Well, that was very impressive. Nice and interesting towards the end of that race there. Difference in strategies, but nobody could touch Andrew Brooks in that race at all.
No, the other guys almost needn't bother turn up with that sort of pace from Brooks. Danny Solis did gain a tiny bit at the end, but I think that's because Brooks was just chilling out there, just vibing and enjoying the win. Of course, people still coming across the line now. Just the stragglers, so to speak. Not a great race for these guys at the bottom, but of course I think even just being in this top 16 race is a privilege in itself. But as you said, this man, Andrew Brooks, completely untouchable today.
Hugely impressive stuff there for Andrew Brooks. So look at the final results you can see on your screen at the moment. Brooks takes the win ahead of Solis and Hayward. That is your podium. Pounder, Heck, Pinnell, Helt and Lynch all inside the top 8. Not too far adrift from one another in 7th and 8th position there. Just a couple of seconds separating those guys. Lynch actually had a bit more performance, I think, in him than that, but it didn't quite go his way. Then Cortez and Komatsu round out the top 10 ahead of Stewart, Grove, Roach, and Johnson and Wenzel did not make the checkered flag there in that race for one reason or another. So that is the Nations Cup race concluded here for the North America region of the top 16 Superstars. Let's see how it affects the championship standings. The championship standings, you can see Andrew Brooks cements his lead at the top of the order ahead of Randall Hayward and Danny Solis. Danny Solis in 2nd. Randall Hayward now moves up into 3rd position. Heck and Pinnell, despite their relatively strong results there, Jimmy, moving down the order.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, their competitors did better in that race. It goes to show you just how tight it is here. I mean, between Heck and Pinnell, there's only 14 points in that, so that's just basically a position lower, a position higher, and those results would be reversed.
You can see a few movers a little bit outside of the top 10 there. TTG Shapiro, Cortez moving up the order, as well as Tristan Bayliss, and a few movers down there as well. If you'd like to take part in the online series for the FIA Gran Turismo Championships, you firstly have to enter sport mode on GT Sport. You can represent your country or territory as part of that. We've got 3 stages for the online season. Stage 1 is in April and May, Stage 2 June, July, Stage 3 July and August, and then our top 16 Superstars races are below. The drivers from the highest points from each region will be selected for the top 16 Superstars races, and there are 5 regions in total. So then we've just had the Nations Cup. Our focus shifts over to the Manufacturer Series, and here is what we're expecting for it. The Dragon Trail Seaside Circuit is what the drivers are going to be competing on. In Group 3 machinery, racing soft, medium and hard tyre compounds available to these drivers. You can see a total of 18 laps for them. Jimmy, this of course is a very different circuit to the circuit, the Barcelona-Catalunya, that we were in just a few moments ago. What are we expecting for this one?
Yeah, a lot more overtaking opportunities here, of course, as well. And the thing is, we have different tyre strategies out there and different fuel strategies. That 4 times fuel consumption rate there really is going to play a role in this race, because lifting and coasting is pretty much going to be the order of things. So if you're in a pack of cars full of medium and soft runners and you're saving fuel, you can probably end up saving tyres as well. So it's going to be a thinking man's race, this one.
Well, with that said then, let's head over to the grid, shall we? So then to the grid for the Manufacturers Series race for the North America's region of the top 16 superstars. Group 3 machinery, just to remind you, you can see an eclectic mix lining up there on the grid. It's Danny Solis, the American, who lines up on pole position behind the wheel of the Subaru WRX. Alongside him is Tronosco in the Citroen GT. Also in the Citroen GT is Andrew Brooks, our winner, of course, from the Nations Cup race just a few moments ago. Marzan lines up in P4 alongside him on that second row of the grid. Then Heck in P5 in the Porsche 911 RSR. Also in the Volkswagen is Parker in the Volkswagen Beetle. Nick McMillan for Aston Martin, sticking with that team and that manufacturer, lining up in P7 for 2020. Lynch lines up alongside him in the McLaren 650S in P8. P9 is Cortez in the Ferrari 458. And then P10 is Richard Castro in the Nissan GTR. P11, Randall Hayward in the BMW M6 GT3. And alongside him is Tristan Bayliss, again in the Porsche. Very distinctive livery on Bayliss' car. Mitchell lines up P13 in the Lexus RCF rather, I should say. And Mark Pinnell lines up P14. And the final row of the grid is an Audi R8 with Leach behind the wheel in P15. And that concludes our grid then. So, Jimmy, our first look at tyres. You can see the top 3 have gone for the softs, and the remaining 3 below are on mediums.
The thing is, at the start of these races, something that I've noticed from previous races is that tyre aren't that important at the start. Soft and medium are pretty much on the same level around here if people are doing fuel saving. Now, we know at the front of the grid that Danny Solis in that WRX, we know that car is pretty quick in a straight line. I don't know too much about the Citroens because they're actually quite rarely represented. It's good to see him here, of course, but I haven't seen him for a while. So if Danny's on a fast a car that's quick in a straight line, he might be able to break away at the start on this soft compound tyre, but we'll have to see how effective the draft is.
We certainly will. So Danny Solis, good qualifying for him then. He rounds the final corner here at the Dragon Trail Seaside circuit. What are we expecting to see in 18 laps time? Well, your guess is as good as mine. We get ready then, the Manufacturers Series race for the top 16 superstars of the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships. Round 3 is about to get underway then. Solis will lead the field over the timing line for the first time of 18 then, as they all go into the slipstream and try and get an advantage on their fellow competitors. Turn 1's not an overtaking spot. It's a good, fast, high-speed kink though to launch something maybe into turn 2. Hard on the brakes we go. Solis is going to hold on to his lead. Further back though, you can see by the looks of things, a bit of moves being made there. I think that was Parker, indeed it was, making a move on Lynch for P7. So the Volkswagen now ahead of the McLaren.
A good move there, good to get that done early doors as we come in now to the second sector for the first time. Look at these Citroen GTs there. Brooks there just catching a little bit of the grass on the other side of the curb. You can't go too wide in the curb, and that was an example of that happening there. Solis has opened up a tiny bit of a gap, up to about 7/10 of a second now on the guys behind. So he'll be looking to try and extend that as we get to the end of a lap. Here is Heck there in the Porsche 911 RSR up behind Marzan in the Mercedes AMG, which has been a little bit weaker of late. Let's see if Heck can fire something down into the bottom here. He is on the same tyre as Marzan too, so it's pretty much equal playing as far as that is concerned. As we come through the chicane for the first time, Nick McMillan in the mix as well.
Yeah, good to see Nick up there representing Aston Martin. We've seen him, of course, competing for that manufacturer in some World Tour events previously. Whenever they come to the World Tour, though, it's not gone their way at all. Threading the eye of a needle through that chicane they go, and you can see Heck there already on the defensive against McMillan. Heck, of course, on the medium tyres, McMillan on the soft compound, and it's like candy from a baby under the braking zone. How much later he is able to brake and how much more confidence he has underneath him in these early stages. Now, what you should expect is the drivers on the hard compound of tyres to get in and get off of those tyres at the end of this first lap. So the likes of Richard Castro, Tristan Bayliss, Mark Pinnell and Leach will come into the pit lane, and indeed they all do. They all go into the mediums, aside from Pinel, who on the Alfa Romeo, which as we know is not necessarily that competitive in Group 3 form, goes onto the softs here for his next stint.
So the Alpha, yeah, it's an interesting car that. It's pretty slow on the straights, I think one of the slowest, but in the corners it's still pretty decent through there, so maybe looking to try and make the most of that now while he hopefully has some free air, but he doesn't. He's stuck behind Bayless, so that would put pay to that idea. Looking back now from Danny Solis, our leader at the moment, inside representing Subaru. Tell you what, we've got Danny Solis in Subaru, we've got Mick Hazal in Subaru. I'm unsure about the Oceania representative, but that's a fairly strong lineup already, if you ask me.
Yeah, we know that WRX, as you said, is an absolute lightning bolt in a straight line, and it would be very interesting to see if we can get Subaru to a World Tour event, I think for the first time. I don't think we had them there in 2019. And,
P13
well, let's
last year.
Yeah, they were very close. In fact, you're quite right.
Just outside, yeah.
Just outside of it, so let's see whether they can make that step up the order. At the moment, they're going exactly the right way about it, with Danny Solis leading the field. What about Citroen as well? When was the last time we saw them competing at a World Tour event? I'm sure they've been there in series gone past, but it's been a very long time since then. Likewise, McLaren as well. This is the interesting thing, of course, about the BOP, isn't it, Jimmy? That it chops and changes. So teams, manufacturers who were competitive and quick last year may not necessarily be so this year.
The idea, of course, is to try and balance the cars as close as possible. When you have such varying designs, I mean, just look at the first couple of cars. You've got an old Aston in there, V12 Aston, Marzan there having to defend from Macmillan on the soft compound tyre, just slides it up the inside. Tyre advantage there definitely comes into play, but to go back to the point I was making, you've got old Aston there, you've got the VW Beetle in the background, you've got a GT concept by Citroen as well there. All those things come into play when you try and balance those cars, making sure they're the same speed. It's very tricky, so it changes all the time, of course.
Yeah, the team at Polyphony doing a good job of just getting that as good as they possibly can. It's a very long and arduous effort. We're riding on board here with Marzan, who is in P5, just sitting behind Nick McMillan, who's made a good ascension through the field in these opening couple of laps. Of course, former GT Academy winner is Nick McMillan, competed at various endurance racing events in years gone by. Hasn't had a real world racing seat for a few years now, but is loving competing on GT Sport, and we're loving seeing him here as well, mixing it with our fellow competitors. So through that chicane they go, threading the eye of a needle, and Tronscoso and Brooks doing a good job there in P2 and P3. Brooks not quite as dominant as we saw him in the Nations Cup race here, Jimmy, but still doing a good job of keeping with that lead group.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different story in this, as Lynch fires on the inside of Marzan there, again using that tyre advantage to his best effort. Now what I'd be interested to see is if any of these guys are doing a little bit of fuel saving. So right now, if you're Marzan right now, you know Lynch is quicker on that soft compound tyre, so what do? You sit in the toe and you just lightly get off the throttle. You just lift a tiny bit down the straight, not 100%, then you have a big lift into here as well, and that's a lot of fuel saved. And what that means is when you have to come around to refueling the car, because you will have to do that in this race, you're putting less fuel in the tank and you're spending less time stationary.
So down in towards the right-hander we go. On board here with Marzan, such commitment you have to go through that corner. This onboard camera not really doing justice to it. If you watch it from an external angle, it's just phenomenal how quick these drivers are able to launch it into there. But just to keep an eye on the different manufacturers, and that's what the beauty of the manufacturer series is, there are so many of them. You've got Subaru inside the top 10, as well as Citroen, McLaren, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Ferrari, Lexus and BMW. That is just a phenomenal list of marks, isn't it, up and down the order, and it's great to see them all being relatively competitive to one another.
Yeah, only in Gran Turismo can you see a Volkswagen Beetle diced with a Ferrari, and just as I say it, here it is on your screen right now. Cortez and Parker, Ferrari and VW representatives in a row there, all coming through the chicane of death. I'm not sure if Polyphony first of all named it that, but that's the name it's picked up over the years. As we now come down, they should do, yeah, as we come down there, and there goes the Beetle, the mighty Beetle up the inside once more. Imagine you're a Ferrari owner, you spend £250,000 on your Ferrari, and some guy in a Beetle with a wing comes by you, and Cortez just gets it a little bit sideways on exit, and that's going to allow the M6 to get alongside as well and draft the Beetle in front.
So Hayward pulls alongside through the right-hander of that first turn, and he is ahead already. It's not normally an overtaking opportunity that. You normally set it up into turn 2, this chicane here. But such was the advantage of straight-line speed that Hayward had, having got a clean exit out of that final corner. He was able to get the advantage in traction and position over Cortez and moves into P9. Now his next target, Randall Hayward, is of course going to be the driver in front of Parker. So let's see what he's going to be able to do. It's nice to see Hayward continuing on with BMW, so a bit of continuity there for him. He's very familiar with that M6 machine. We've seen it, of course, at the World Tour events. Winners from our Paris World Tour back in 2019, BMW, let's not forget, and he's doing a good job out there as well. Meanwhile, the trio still continue on in the lead of this race, 2.5 seconds ahead of Nick McMillan, our Solis Troncoso, I should say rather, I'll get it right in the end, and Andrew Brooks in P1, P2 and P3. So looking pretty good here and pretty calm, not much in terms of overtaking action, but again keeping it relatively close. And I'm guessing probably in the closing stages, once these strategies begin to unravel, that's when we're going to see things get quite interesting.
Oh, remember back to the World Tour event in Sydney, Tom, where Jonathan Wong led from the beginning. But essentially all he did was give the guys behind a free tow and a free way of saving fuel. I think that's what's kind of happening here a bit. I think these Citroens looking very quick, and usually at this point you don't get to this point and then not try and overtake. I think this is a conscious effort from both the guys in the Citroen just to save that little bit of fuel and just try and jump him in the pit stop. It's a lot easier to jump someone in the pit stop than it is overtake on track.
So here we are then looking at Marzan in P6. This battle still continues on just outside of the top 5. Of course, Lynch in front as well as McMillan on the softer compound of tyres. So Marzan doing a very good job actually of keeping with this group on this medium compound of tyre here so far. Keep an eye out and see how things continue onwards there. You can see just in the background of your shot there, Parker, Cortez and Hayward still very close to one another on the fringes of this top 10. So what are the main differences in strategy for this race compared to the Nations Cup race that we just watched here, Jimmy? Different cars, of course, but how are they treating it differently, these drivers?
I think it's more just a fuel game, this one, and just trying to put yourself in the right position at the right time. You know, that's the easy way of saying it, but it's more that, and also making sure you aren't fighting too hard. That these three at the front here, they've been pretty much just following each other around, and as a result of that, they've opened up a gap of nearly 3 seconds back to McMillan behind. He's got his own little group to deal with. So really it's about thinking about that long game. It's really, really tempting when you're in second place to go, oh, I can be in the lead, I can overtake here. But any sort of overtake you make, you lose half a second on track because you're off lines, you're squabbling through a corner, you aren't taking the ideal line through there. So yeah, there's a bit of working together in here as well, but it also is that selfishness of just trying to save fuel and just trying to stay behind someone and keep that fuel safe. And right now, Parker, for example, for the second group, he's the one punching the hole in the air and using the most fuel.
Looking at Cortez here, just getting a bit out of shape in that final corner there as well. Meanwhile, the leading trio still continue on in this race, lining as they were. As you said, Jimmy, just doing a really good job there, I think, of saving fuel, keeping it at a constant, and then going to use that advantage to pounce later in this race. Not necessarily the most action-packed start to a race that we have ever seen in the Manufacturer Series, but it'll be interesting to see how the strategies all play out. The top 5 runners, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen on that tower graphic, all on the soft compound of tyres. Drivers from 11th down to 15th place have at least made 1 pit stop. In the case of Heck, he's made 2, so not quite sure what that's all about there for Heck, because he was running in the lower half of this race, I think it's fair to say, in the Porsche, but 2 pit stops early on. I'm wondering what his strategy is going to be there.
He started on the soft compound of tyre, I think, or on the medium. I think it was soft. Was it medium or soft he started on? It wasn't a hard tyre, I know that for sure. So I think what he's trying to do is just have some free air, go for the Miyazono strat, where you're just on your own at the back so you can go quickly. I don't really know, to be honest. Either that or he's messed up somewhere and we've not seen it. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he's done something cool instead of messed up.
Yep. Let's go with that one there then for now. So Lynch still putting the pressure on to Nick McMillan then here in P4 and P5. Out of that final corner we go. Riding on board here with Nick McMillan, the GT Planet logo and Thrustmaster logos adorning his car. Marzan comes into the pit lane from the medium. Which way is he going to go? He's going to go hard, so he'll run those presumably for 1 lap, get them off, and then probably get a set of soft tyres on there, one would imagine, because he'll have then run all 3 tyre compounds in this race, and he'll try and run soft tyres to the end. Whether he'll do that in one stint or another 2, I don't quite know, but that will remain to be seen. How will that strategy work out? Because of course he'll be quicker than the other drivers around him, who will be on the medium and the hard tyres respectively here as well. I tell you what, this Aston looks quite good in this first sector actually here. It's holding its own against that McLaren.
Yeah, it's doing all right for an old car. You know, this thing is 8 years old now, this design, which makes me feel old, because I was watching this thing go around and being completely entranced by it, of course. One of the only cars in the field, I think it is the only car in the field with a V12 engine, a bit archaic by today's standards, but great to see it represented here in Gran Turismo Sport. That he is falling back there, Macmillan, from this lead group of Solis, Troncosco and Brooks. So yeah, he needs to really get the hammer down a bit if he's going to catch him. But meanwhile, these guys no such patience. Hayward looking up the inside of Cortez. He's going to have to get into line though, coming into the chicane. You could not go side by side through here without a gigantic accident. So unless Hayward wants to end his race that way, he's very sensibly pulled in behind Cortez.
Yeah, very much one at a time through there, I think, is the order of the day. The most sensible solution for Randall Hayward there. You can just see Mitchell in the background, D. Mitchell. I don't know whether his first name is David or not, whether that's a relation to the actor who was in Peep Show. Probably not. Bit obscure for our North American viewers, I'm sure, because they probably never have heard of Peep Show. Anyway, speaking of that and changing the subject, quite rightly so, because I'm waffling on, the drivers come into the pit lane then, so everybody pretty much from the top 10 changing tyres. Now, Solis, Troncoso, Brooks, Lynch go to the hard compound of tyres. Cortez is going to soft. Mitchell is going to hard, as is McMillan, Bayliss and Leach going on to the medium compound of tyres there. So everybody has at least made now one pit stop in this race. Now it's going to be interesting, but it's a bit of a stalemate really here, because all of these drivers, especially the Citroen drivers of course, they're in exactly the same boat as Danny Solis on the hard tyres.
Yeah, fuel was interesting there. So I was trying to keep an eye on the fuel and what people had and what people were putting in. Not everyone has filled up to the brim. You know, tank capacity in these cars is 100 litres. Some people putting in 80, some people putting in 95. So, of course, the more fuel you put in as well, the more you can run on that rich mix at the top there. Not have to worry about the car spluttering to a halt a few laps from the end. So we'll see what they come out with here. But of course, this battle here now, Cortez and Pinal together. So we are missing Hayward, who pitted in on the last lap. But I'm sure we'll see a pit stop soon from these guys. But potentially to go on to the medium compound tyre. We'll see. They're all one-stopping. Mitchell behind now on that hard compound. All he can really do is try and stay with these guys. And got Mark Pinal and that rather garish bright gold Alpha 4C. I mean, guy's got money to spare, it seems.
Livery only a mother could love, I think, that is probably fair to say. But, well, into the pit lane come... Well, I mean, they do now. If they didn't, they do.
Asking the real questions.
Exactly. Well, you know, this is the thing with us, Jimmy, is that we ask the questions that everybody wants to know the answers to, I think it's fair to say. So, into the pit lane then come the leading trio. They, of course, are now making fuel stops as well. So where are they going to emerge? That is the crucial question as they come out of the pit lane. They're on the medium compound of tyres, so they're down in 11th position, 10th position and 9th position. But the two Citroens have leapfrogged Danny Solis in that pit stop there.
You know what that is? That's fuel. 100%
Yep.
Fuel there. They've just managed to, and it's not by a small margin either. Look, 2 seconds now to the back of these guys, but they've come out in an absolute sea of traffic as Bayliss goes off there into the gravel trap. He's exploring worlds anew out there. That's not where you want to be, Tristan. Come back, please, mate. But this is good for Solis, because these guys having to battle through here means it's going to slow them up a little bit and negate a little bit of that fuel advantage they had in the pits.
Yeah, needed a ticket to get back in from there, did Tristan Bayliss, who was so far up the perimeter of the circuit, but gathers it all up. He's back into P11. There's Troncoso, now in P7 and P8. So these Citroens sitting pretty there at the moment. They're in dirty air, of course, but might actually be an advantage because they can use that slipstream on that really long straight down in towards turn 2. to their advantage. Of course, they have to be a bit careful because in their mirrors close behind is the likes of Leach, who is also on the medium tyres, but of course Leach's medium compound tyres, and Troncoso's in the wall at the chicane. That's what we were talking about. A simple mistake can cost you dear, and it has cost Troncoso dear. It's going to cost him a podium position potentially here because now Solis goes through as well. So down into P10 on the road, but that is the battle for the podium, and Troncoso might have put himself out of victory contention here with that mistake.
I was going to say that himself and Brooks are going to have to sort that out at the end regardless, because although they are running the same manufacturer, they are very much not teammates. They need to race selfishly in that. But I think that's already closed the book on that one. A mistake from Troncoso coming into the chicane. We've seen it so many times. It's just the margin for error through there is so slim that if you do make a mistake, that's what happens. It costs you that time. And from being right behind Andrew Brooks now, there is Danny Solis in between them. So hopefully he can catch back up for his own race. But I think now Andrew Brooks will be trying to stretch the legs in that Citroen and trying to build a gap.
Well, let's see what he's going to be able to do, the Canadian driver. Can he make it 2 from 2 in round 3 of the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships for these top 16 Superstars races? Let's wait and see. Here is Parker all over the gearbox of Nick McMillan, trying to find his way through. A Volkswagen Beetle attacking an Aston Martin Vantage. I'll have some of that. Down in towards the hairpin we go. On the straight, hard on the brakes we go. Parker fully committed on the inside. Soft tyres, of course, on that Volkswagen, allowing him to brake later, and he moves up into 3rd place in this race.
Old Herbie on steroids there. He just completely outbraking McMillan into the braking zone, and fantastic performance here by the VW. It's still very weird to see it go around and be so competitive, but of course there is a bit of a tyre advantage there as well. Soft tyres to the medium of Nick McMillan, which usually accounts for most of our overtakes like that, but that's that said and done. Now Cortez into the pit lane from the lead at the moment. He gets onto the harder compounded tyres. He'll be on that for 1 lap, I imagine, then onto the mediums for the end. Parker stays out though, and Haywood at the moment takes the provisional lead of this race. Cortez there, overtaken by Parker, just come out the pit lane, as does Nick McMillan. Gets him 2. Will Brooks get him? No, Brooks won't get him. So Brooks is going to have to put up with a hard compound runner for a bit, and he might lose a bit of time here.
Yeah, that is going to be very important indeed. Of course, Brooks is on the medium tyre, so a little bit quicker, about a second or so faster than that hard compound of tyre. But going through these corners here, that's where he's hemorrhaging time, and all the while he's losing it to the likes of Nick McMillan and Parker, who he would otherwise be battling with. He needs to dispose of this Ferrari as soon as he possibly can. Coming down the hill is not a normal overtaking opportunity, and quite rightfully, Brooks thinks better of it going through there, but you can just see how much more grip he's got going through here. Listen to the tyres, listen to the understeer, and look at how much more committed he is. And if he gets a good run coming over the brow of the hill as Cortez runs it a bit wide, he can surely think about a move. Cortez aggressively tries to slam the door shut. They run side by side down this straight in towards the hairpin. Brooks is later on the brakes, and he's through into 4th place. So that was as good as it could possibly be there for Brooks, getting ahead of that Ferrari.
To add an insult to injury, Troncoso also has a penalty. Picked up a penalty somewhere from a little bit of contact maybe, so that's pretty much his attack on the win probably gone now. It's just between Solis and Brooks. Of course, these guys are actually teammates. They belong to the same sim racing team, so there'll be no love lost there between the two of them, of course, even though they're teammates. They'll be battling for their manufacturer here, but this could be a very good result for Citroen, who have been pretty much nowhere in the manufacturer series for a long time. If they can pull off a win here with Andrew Brooks, that'll be monumental for them.
Cortez into the pit lane then, putting a bit of fuel on board and some soft tyres as well. That'll be nice towards the end of the race. That car will be gripping like pigeon dirt to a car bonnet. Meanwhile, Randall Haywood doing a good job of leading this race on the soft tyres ahead of Parker. So it's German manufacturer BMW from German manufacturer Volkswagen from the British mark of Nick McMillan in P3 there. So coming through that right-hander here is now Andrew Brooks trying to attack against Nick McMillan. Of course, he's going to be stuck in the dirty air, and that's going to be hemorrhaging the grip and life of his front tyres. However, it will give him the advantage of the slipstream, so it's a double-edged sword, this, really. See what the difference in grip is between these two drivers through those S-bends. That's a good opportunity. And you can see Brooks is just that little bit quicker with that fresher rubber on his car here.
Got the momentum down the hill as well. Go for the lunge up the inside on Nick McMillan, who will know better than I think to probably defend it at this point. Brooks goes up the inside. McMillan really squeezed him to the outside. Actually, he's not willing to give up at this point. He wants to try and keep that third position for as long as possible. He knows if he can stay ahead as well, that he's going to be just disturbing that Citroen for the rest of the race. Nick McMillan definitely is a racer. Again, one of our GT Academy winners, raced in real life as well in the Nissan GTR GT3, did a decent job of it. But here, of course, representing Aston Martin today. Meanwhile, Prokosco down the back of the field, midfield now. Of course, a couple of mistakes really have kind of put paid to his attack on the lead here, but he can still come away with a decent result. But the guy he needs to beat, Andrew Brooks, is quite a way up the road now.
Well then, it's getting interesting with just under 4 laps now remaining. Here comes Marzan on Troncoso then to the inside at T1. They run side by side, wing mirror to wing mirror, and Marzan very easily through. Soft tyres, of course, giving him more grip, more confidence, under braking in particular there, and he gets up in that Mercedes AMG GT3 car into 3rd position. That's nicely done there from Marzan, the American driver. Now Brooks is ahead of Nick McMillan into P3. So that's not bad there for the Canadian driver. That's what he needed to do, get himself into the front of this race. And, well, we haven't seen the dominance that we saw from him in the Nations Cup race, but once the likes of Hayward and Parker and also McMillan have made their pit stops, he's got over a 2-second buffer potentially here to Danny Solis. That's worked out very handsome.
I think whilst it's not a dominant race, this circuit doesn't really allow that given the amount of fuel saving you need to do around here. So really this has been a very, very clever race from Andrew Brooks, where in the first half he's gone, you know what, I can't win the race in the first few laps, so I'm going to just drive around. I'm going to get that slipstream, I'm going to save that fuel, and then come pit stop time, with both Citroens doing the same thing, they jumped 2 seconds, or 3 seconds I should say really, on Danny Solis, who was leading from the start, and put himself in a very, very strong position coming to the end of the race. Now, Parker, Hayward together at the front here, 1st and 2nd place. When will they pit in for their hard compounder tyre towards the end? They've still got tyres to use here. Parker there again, deep in the draft, with Hayward coming down to T1. Again, I think belonging to the same sim racing team here. Liveries look very similar indeed. Looks to the inside, gets it done, very nice. And there you go, Parker up into 1st place in the VW Beetle. They do have to stop again though, whereas Andrew Brooks behind does not.
Have some of that. That's lovely stuff there from Parker. Great respect between himself and Hayward, and those two can just help each other out really a little bit now by the looks of things. I think you're spot on there, Jimmy, when you say they both drive for the same esports outfit. And, well, very distinctive liveries on their car, battling out of position at the moment. Nice to be leading in the front of this race because they've got nothing really to worry about too much in front here. But meanwhile, here we look at Troncoso. What could have been, I think, for him, an unforced error made at that chicane. And now he is battling in the lower echelons of the top 10. And this is a battle for position as well between himself and Marzan. I have to say, it is good performance from him because he is on the medium tyres. Marzan, by comparison, on the softer compound of tyres. So he's looking in good shape here, is Troncoso, to try and pick up some points, try and salvage something from what will otherwise be a hugely disappointing race otherwise.
I think as it stands, when the pit stops and said and done, he'll still be in 3rd position, I think. We'll see if that pans out the way. I mean, I've been wrong many times before, and I'm sure one more time won't hurt. But we'll see. These guys at the front of the field, they still owe their stop. They're going to go, as we've probably seen, as far as they can go on this soft tyre and on that fuel they've got in the car. And that probably means them pitting on lap 17 of 18 just before we come across the start-finish line to get that done. A nice little shot there of our scenic backdrop. Of course, this fictional track by the guys at Polyphony, but we are based over in Croatia, just off the sea as well. Nice scenic place, really, if you aren't really bothered about racing.
I have to say, I've never been to Croatia, but if it had a Dragon Trail Seaside circuit, I'd be over there in a heartbeat as soon as we're able to travel, Jimmy, to be honest with you, because it looks like such a fun circuit. It's one of my favourite to drive on GT Sport, and I love that with Gran Turismo as well, is that you get to see some stuff like these fictional circuits that the developers and the editors and everybody at the team just puts in such a monumental effort to make them as fantastic as possible. And that's the good thing about it, is that you can do it kind of your own free will and have a bit of free reign compared to a real world track where you've got limitations and so on and so forth. Here you can just sort of let your mind run free a bit, and they do it, and it works well.
Yeah, I think you know, from my experience growing up, of course, with GT, there's always been some fantastic fictional circuits, and it'd be great to see some of them make a bit more of a some of the traditional ones make a comeback at some point. We'd love to see a Trial Mountain or something come back, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe in the future, as we come around on the lap 16. Watching Danny Solis, who's come up to the back of Nick McMillan now. I wonder if Nick will be able to defend at all from Danny. We're on board now through the chicane, and that always looks very concerning going through there. Gets your heart beating a little bit quicker. As we come now down to the last corner. Now, Danny's going to have the toe off Nick. Let's see what the difference in tyre wear is through here, because they're both on the same set of tyres, but Nick's been on it for a bit longer. There we go. So Hayward now comes into the pit lane. He had to come in. Look, only 4 litres of fuel left for that hard compound of tyre. So he's going to have one more lap on the hard tyre than Parker in front of him.
Where's he going to emerge out on the track, though, as well? Don't forget, of course, Nick McMillan is out of position. Here comes Danny Solis, ready to send it down the inside on the brakes into turn 2, into 3rd position on the road. But this, of course, is still part of the battle for the race lead. The man he is battling for that effective race lead is just in front of him on your shot at the moment of Andrew Brooks and Danny Solis. So let's see how things are going to play out. Parker, of course, will have to come in at the end of this lap. He has got one more set of tyres to use in this one and to put some more fuel on board. In the background of your shot, you can see Marzan and Troncoso looking still very close to one another. And again, that could be very crucial indeed as to who ends up on this final spot on the podium. There is Marzan. He is in 2nd place. I'm not sure if he's got another tyre compound to use. He has made 2 stops, but if he's gone soft, for example, he might still have the hard tyres to use in the closing stages of this one. So it is a battle for position at the moment, but how long is that going to last? Here comes Troncoso down the inside of Marzan on the brakes, locking up on the ragged edge of adhesion, and he tries to get the switch back. There does Marzan. They draw alongside one another as they come through into the chicane, and the Mercedes-Benz does hold on. That is a perfect example of the switchback on corner exit. Marzan timing that beautifully there.
Yeah, Castro there in the background too. He could cause a bit of an upset if these guys come together as well. So we expect to see Parker peel into the pit lane to put on his hard compound of tyres. There goes Troncoso again, chucking it up the inside. He's determined to take that 5th position away, and he does. Marzan is going to have to stay out for now. So McMillan coming in too. Let's see who leads. We think it's going to be Andrew Brooks. I assume it is going to be. There's Troncoso. There is Parker coming out in the Beetle, and Troncoso keeps the inside line nice and tight. Marston's going to go a long way around though. Can he outbrake him coming into the chicane? He cannot. Just hasn't quite got the tyre life left to do that. They both go deep there. Look, here's Castro. Sideways goes Troncoso. That's going to slow him down coming out of the right-hander, and now it's Marzan and Troncoso go side by side. Castro nowhere to go, but he's involved too.
This is getting very close indeed. Here comes Castro up the inside of Marzan into the right-hander. In the background as well, I think that was Parker who's gone off circuit. Indeed, he has. That's a disaster for him, and Marzan's got a penalty there for contact, I believe, with Castro. That has put him out of contention for this podium battle. So now it's Troncoso versus Castro. It's Citroen versus Nissan for this final squabble on the podium.
It's almost looking like at the front, though, that Danny Solis could almost catch Andrew Brooks. The gaps come right down here as well. Danny Solis now on the back of that Citroen. I think that Brooks might have been caught short on fuel. He's been very slow these last couple of laps, but now he's going to have to turn everything up because the fast-charging Danny Solis in the Subaru is looking to break some hearts. He's got the slipstream coming down to the last corner, but I don't think he's going to quite be close enough, so Brooks is very slow there.
Yep, coming in towards this final corner then. Danny Solis hard on the brakes. Brooks is trying to hold on for just a few metres more. Out of the final corner we go. Andrew Brooks is going to make it the double. Surely here he does take the checkered flag in the Manufacturers Series. The top 16 Superstars races belong to Andrew Brooks. Troncoso is just going to hold off the charge of Richard Castro to the end of that race. Marzan comes home in P5, Hayward in P6, Parker P7. Well, that was hugely exciting there, Jimmy, to the end of that.
Tell you what, I think Brooks just calculated his fuel right. I think he was running short at the end there because he was a lot slower than Danny Solis. I noticed it on the lap before and I thought, no, it won't quite be enough. And you saw the acceleration difference coming out of the last corner. He had to run it on a lean mix or he wasn't going to make it. He was going to chug out of the line, but luckily just made it very close there for first and second.
There are confirmation of the results on your screen. You can see Pinnell just getting inside the top 10. Mick McMillan, what happened to him? Dropped down to 11th place with that last pit stop ahead of Mitchell, Lynch, Leach and Tristan Bayliss. So those are your results then for the North America Region Manufacturers Series race. Let's take a look and see what it means for the championship standings. Andrew Brooks of course, with that win, moves up into the lead of the North America region for Citroen, ahead of Danny Solis and Troncoso. Then Castro and Marzan also making gains. Heck and Gallen moving down the order there. But just look at the movers further down, Jimmy. Everybody in the lower half of the top 10 and just outside of it, moving either up or down positions.
Yeah, not a great race there for Tristan Bayliss. Had a bit of a tough time, went off the circuit a couple of times, and obviously as a result has moved down to 8th place. But it's still very much all to play for, with 7th, 8th and 9th position in this series being separated by only 6 points.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us for the top 16 superstars for the North America region for the Nations Cup and the Manufacturers Series race. We'll be back in action for round 7 of the championship on the 17th of May. From Jimmy Broadbent and from myself, Tom Brooks, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.